All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case. Over on Rumble, of course, we've got a lot to talk about today. First, the not inevitability, but near inevitability of Trump v. Biden 2.0. We've got to talk about Twitter, specifically the transphobes list there. I think this one is just funny. It's major news to me because I made the list, and congratulations to yours truly for doing so, Hochul, and the test marketing of a tobacco ban in New York, which will go over really well. Everyone assures you. So clank away. I'll make sure we're live on Rumble in a moment. First, we have some chats. Cam2425IA, morning, Clankdom. Mrs. Tag, gotta go see a man about a horse. And Buddy Mac 13 saying Cam. Lots and lots to cover. Let's see. I've been working like a dog on my literature, by the way, over the last few days. I made a blog post the other day on WordPress, Blogspot, and on Substack, actually. I'm doing several projects at the same time. I'm writing a booklet on wokeness, defining it and debunking it. I've already got the first section and the preface done, so there are 12 sections to go. That'll probably be done in a couple of weeks, I hope, but my schedule is tenuous. I've completed Orange Man Big, which is the leftoid fantasies about Donald Trump story that I promised everyone. The satire, the dark comedy, rather degenerated and insane. A little bit like morbid stories if it were political, I think. And also, of course, editing through Works. I completed another one today and did a few pages of another that's not in great condition, but it's short. So the length of time to edit really depends on those two things. Is it in good condition for proofreading? This one's not. And how many pages is it? Now, this one's short. It's from the 1700s, actually, but we've got lots and lots to talk about anyway. Trees Foxhole, do you know anything about the massacres in Haiti? That's called a day that ends in a Y in Haiti. So, no, I don't know anything about any particular massacres there. We will be talking about Sudan, however, of course. Let me make sure all my tabs are working. Also, StreamYard has introduced the ability to use Opera tabs. And so I will probably be doing a few extra special videos at some point. I want to do some Minecraft streaming with just basic commentary, but I've got to test that out because when I did a recording of it, it kind of glitched out, like it was really slow. The frame rate was very, very low. And so I'm hoping that that's different when you're live streaming. No promises, though. I'm going to try. The Arcadian 300. Have you heard of Mentis Wave? Great libertarian channel. No, I haven't, actually. Yeah, you can always suggest channels for me to follow on any platform, really. Just DM me on Twitter, where I think we're approaching 130,000 subscribers, actually. Clankdom is having some good times, as predicted in the 2020s. Not necessarily on the platforms I would have predicted all the time. Wilden, did you see Trump started posting on Instagram again? Yes, I did, and on Facebook, for what very, very little it's worth. I just want him to make mean tweets again. That was really, that's the salt of the earth sort of stuff that our nation needs at this time. Stephen 13. I'm disappointed in the amount of people who think that the Axis were the good guys because the West is woke. The West was not woke in World War II. Lol. True. King of Biltong, good morning from Antons in Roanoke, Texas. Hashtag Clank Nation. More beef funding money. I should probably keep track of it so that when I show up and pull out the Benji greens, I can sit there and scarf down meat until I have a coronary. Yeah, just a second again. What the fuck is going on with my tabs? I never know. Tech illiteracy strikes again. Okay, I guess they're working. Steady Eddie 1983. Breaking. Man who can't walk upstairs announces run for presidency. Stocks in double-sided bubble wrap expected to rise. Yeah, we don't 100% know that Joe Biden is actually going to announce a presidential run. But we will be talking about a side story here. In fact, we'll just get into the news. Why Biden's orbit isn't worried about Robert F. Kennedy's 2024 campaign, of course, because he's down at around 14, 15%. That's not bad, considering you're up against a technical incumbent, the incumbent steward at least. It's not bad. It's better than Marianne Williamson has. Here's the problem. and I talked about it this morning in the context of the debates. You have an incumbent steward. I would use the term president, but he doesn't deserve me to say that in regards to him, in Biden. He leads by about 50 points over the rest of the field between RFK Jr., Marianne Williamson, and the undecideds. He leads considerably among that block. He's at about 70% usually. He is the incumbent, which means you're not going to get any presidential debates. By the way, to people that are saying, well, the DNC is trying to screw the people, look, the fix is in. You got to understand that they did the same thing for Trump in 2020. They tend to do this for incumbents and have since the 1970s at least. Technically, there's no debate to be had if you have an incumbent. Typically, the wagons are circled unless there's something desperately wrong. Trump in 2020 was hurting, and yet he got that same deference. Biden in 2024, assuming he runs, and we will get into the likelihood of that, will get the same deference from his party. We are unlikely, in my opinion, to see any mainline presidential debate at all. Biden as the incumbent, Trump as the quasi-incumbent with currently no viable contender. We don't know that DeSantis will get in, although the signs point to he probably will. He leads by nearly 30 points in a field that is considerably more packed, by the way, than the one that Biden faces. Here's the thing. Biden, if he runs, is effectively inevitable. He will be the nominee. You don't have to like that. You don't have to think he's deserving of it. And I think there are a lot of Democrats that would agree with you if you don't think so. Trump is probably going to be the Republican nominee. There's about a 99% chance of that. The problem is that the only viable contender is 30 points almost behind him. In a field that has grown, in a field in which the anti-Trump vote has been watered down already, you've got Asa Hutchinson, you've got Ramaswamy, you've got Nikki Haley, and if DeSantis stands down, if he doesn't run, then that support, part of it will go to those contenders, part to Chris Christie, who is almost inevitably going to run if DeSantis does not, and then the rest defaults back to Trump as the inevitable, hey, I want to vote for the person who's going to win. I think that there are some people that support DeSantis that simply want to win. They want to back the winner. But the first thing you have to win is the primary before you can win the general. And I think that will be a thing. Trump probably rises well beyond the low 50s, mid 50s range into the low 60s, assuming DeSantis doesn't run. In my opinion, there is a better than 95% chance that it will be Biden v. Trump 2.0. That will be very interesting, assuming that there are any general debates. Of course, the Democrats will be looking for ways to try to skeeve on those, to try not to have Biden on stage with Trump. They will probably pull out of their ass, of course, we don't want to debate and thus justify the insurrectionist bullshit. Social distancing would have been a thing, but the Hong Kong emergency ended. And so we'll see what happens. At the end of the day, though, I think it will be Donald Trump versus Joe Biden 2.0. Honking aside, there is definitely a chance that Trump pulls it off depending on the economic wins. Let's wait a year before we make any final predictions that are more justifiable. Because right now the economy is, it's not going great, but it hasn't collapsed. The diplomatic situation is not great. Again, we'll be talking about Sudan. We can talk separately in the future about Korea and other places, certainly Ukraine, but we haven't started World War III. It's almost like lowered expectations with Biden. Well, he hasn't started a nuclear war yet, so hey, I'm on board with the guy. He seems pretty swell. Whereas with Donald Trump, they were expecting him to give them everything but the kitchen sink and then some in order to justify continuing to support him. That's due to propaganda, by the way. Steak Knife, watched your old vids on Charles Manson. Holy cow. Yeah, and I hold to them. I do not believe that Charles Manson was fundamentally guilty of murder. He may have been, but that wasn't what he was charged for, the Lots of Papa murder that he probably did participate in. He was a con and a druggie and a pimp and an auto thief, but no, I don't believe that there was any cult-style killings going on from Spawn Ranch. Son of Tiamat, will you enable channel memberships at some point? We need custom emojis and badges. Nope, not going to happen. The closest that I'll get is you can give super chats like you just did. Clumsy Vash, what's going on with the chemtrain that derailed? Which one? It seems to be a common occurrence. Damn that Trump and his deregulation spree. That's literally their coat, by the way, when it happens. Jerkwad152, the hairy ball theorem states that you cannot brush a hairy sphere no matter how hard you try. Mathematics says no. Interesting. It's probably a real thing, too. It's probably not even a meme. Steak Knife, Stephen King writes the N-word in all his books. Yeah, he seems to have a proclivity towards the magic Negro stereotype as well. Have you read The Stand or The Shining? He often throws in a character that has otherworldly capabilities and is sort of like, almost like an Uncle Tom character, really, when you think about it. And they're always black. He does have a proclivity towards that. Beefy King. I live in Florida, and I saw DeSantis for president this morning for the first time. It was from a super PAC. Not sure if he endorsed it. He doesn't have to endorse anything from a super PAC, although I did see mailing literature that was sent in by a fan the other day, and it does. Look, chances are DeSantis runs. They're better than 50-50. Up until recently, I would have said it was 50-50 at best for Biden. He's crazy to run. The Dems are crazy to support him running. They really should tell him, maybe instead your announcement should be an endorsement, and that's possible. We're not 100% sure. I think the Democrats are making one damn calculated error if they run Joe Biden. DeSantis, meanwhile, at the very least would be viable. And I'm going to be making a video tomorrow on the subject of Ron DeSantis. Again, I'm Team Trump. I will support Donald Trump. If Trump didn't get the nomination, I would probably just write him in. At this point, because a person that's that persecuted by the deep state, I can't imagine that they're actually a bad person. I have to believe that the deep state are the bad people, and that Trump, therefore, really is that maverick, that once-in-a-generation sort of figure that we would need. But I don't have a problem with DeSantis. If he were to run in 2028, he would probably have my support. But he needs to wait in order to do that. It would show a strategic blundering that would make him non-electable if he were to run in 2024. It would poison the well. Kyle Miller, do presidential debates matter if mail-in voting starts before or during the debate time frame? They matter less, but they still can be a sea change. Yes, they still matter. Stephen 13, my favorite games, Fallout 4, older Call of Duty, and Madden NFL. I will make you as a player in Madden. LOL. Yeah, I don't do sports ball. Make me as the player that goes fast but can't take a hit, because that'd be more accurate probably. Cam FNA on Rumble. My Dixie wrecked. That is all. Sorry, had to take it back to middle school trolling. Cam 2425A sent $100 actually over on Rumble. Thank you, and said just because I can. Well, you Richie Rich. We're talking about the blue check marks and Richie Riches of Twitter, actually, tomorrow. Sigil Stone 17. Morning Sticks. Did you hear about the pony that walked into a bar and ordered a glass of water? He was a little hoarse. Dad jokes are welcome on the channel now because, of course, I've got a daughter, so. Doubt Shadow. Shout out to Phil Bowman in South Buffalo, berating his hands for absconding with his precious bodily fluids, demanding they reveal their whereabouts. BW, do you think RFK running will help Trump? If he runs third party, it definitely would, but that remains to be seen. I don't think that will happen. I don't expect any massive surprises other than the legacy media in Silicon Valley banning a bunch of people and censoring things to shit with regards to the Hunter Biden laptop, with regards to Hong Kong, other topics that RFK Jr. would love to bring up on a debate stage in front of Joe Biden, but he won't get a chance to do that. The next news story is there is a user called Bethylamine, actually, and this is a GitHub thing, post, whatever the fuck you'd call it. I don't use GitHub. With over 42,000 people listed, their Twitter handles, actually. These are transphobes, supposedly, and I'm going to get into this. I am happy to have made this list, because when far leftists declare you to be hateful or problematic in some way, normally you can just chuckle at it anyway, because it's bullshit. I've been called a Holocaust denier and everything else under the sun, for example. Where am I on this list? I am at 36,428. I guess I should have chosen a username that started with several A's or numeric characters or something like that. I didn't have that foresight. Damn it. It's like being chosen last in class because your surname is Warwick and starts with a W. How very sad. But yes, I am on the list of people that are transphobic, supposedly. It's a massive list of people. I'd like to point out something. When you compile a list of over 42,000 people, maybe you've got a problem. Maybe it's not these individuals that are problematic. Maybe you have an obsessive personality disorder of some point. I'm talking about this mainly because I consider it a win when you're put on a list like this, a naughty list of people that disagree. I would challenge this or any other user to point out exactly how I'm transphobic, because I've been pretty standard throughout the years, pretty straightforward about my views with regards to the issue. I talked about this, almost 6 years ago, and I said the following. I do not have a problem with people that consider themselves transgendered. I don't care. I've used 4chan since the end of the 2000s. I've been on the internet since the early 2000s. I've been desensitized towards caring about such things. Literally don't care. What I do have a problem is this. What I have a problem with is the idea, number one, that kids would be exposed to sexual content. And unfortunately, that is actually happening. It doesn't involve just people that are transgendered. For the most part, it involves gay males doing drag. Sometimes they're straight, actually. It has nothing to do with trans. And for trans people to glom on with people that are part of a sexual orientation identity never really made sense, because the two don't necessarily correlate. Although there is an overlap, they don't necessarily correlate. Transphobia would demark somebody who is afraid or dislikes people who are transgendered in general. Well, I don't. I just don't give a fucking shit about the entire issue. And as a libertarian, I don't care if someone wants to wear the clothes they want to wear, bang the way they want to do, except if it doesn't involve consent. And that's where the defending children argument comes in, number one. And except if it's victimizing someone, and that's where the women actually exist argument comes in for me as well. Women exist. They are a separate gender from males. It does not matter if this is artificially labeled politically incorrect. It is still the case. Gender is based on chromosomes. Males have a Y chromosome. If you don't have a Y chromosome, regardless of any other dysfunction that the two may have, you are female. That is the sum and substance of it. That is an immutable chromosomal law. You'll be able one day probably to change gender literally through genetic, gene therapy or something like that. We're not at that point yet. Right now, people take hormones and do surgery. It does not matter to me how you want to live your life. It doesn't matter what genitals you want to have, who you want to bang, if they're consenting adults, etc., etc. I don't care. If you consider my belief that women's sports shouldn't be overrun by people who have Y chromosomes, and if you believe that little kids need to be twerked on, whether they're by transgendered individuals, drag performers of whatever orientation they are, or anyone else, under any other circumstances, it would be illegal, by the way, then I consider you to be a freak. I consider you to be a goofball. I consider you to be a pervert. If you want to perv on kids, you're a pervert. If you think that women should be erased and womanhood, for which was struggled for over a goddamn century for actual equality, and no fucking joke, I consider you delusional. I don't care how you want to live your life. Anything beyond that, I don't have a care for. I am glad to have made this list because once again, a deeply disturbed far leftist has decided to throw me in with people with views that are completely different than my own. But in their delusions, they probably believe that they're the same. Many such cases with the far left, by the way. Ozzy's Robots, Morning Sticks, how a plug for my fledgling BitChute channel. Just broke 100K views. Maybe I should have had clank stock at the museum, the Woodstock for clankers. Yeah, so Ozzy's Robots, he's making new channels. That's what I'm talking about. Stephen 13, people obsessed over sports are cringe, but it's okay to like it a little bit. Yeah, it's fine. Like what you want to do. I just happen to be on the opposite end of the spectrum. I think sports are fucking stupid. BW at least will have Twitter this time. Yeah, that's the other thing. Another big sea change that's happened for the 24 election is Twitter is no longer a heavily censored hellscape. It's only mildly chaotic compared to how it was. Paladin Dragoon Writer, hail the Ironage, back Anvil Magazine for great indie stories. Nick Burgett, thanks for the daily political analysis. You're more informative than the mainstream news. I appreciate what you do. Thank you for that. Although I would point out that literally anyone currently watching is more informative than the mainstream news. I take the compliment, though. Thank you. Stephen Nizek, 2023. If you don't go full Jim Sterling, you're a transphobe. By not changing your position, you've gone from open-minded to transphobe. Honest Jerk, Sticks, I hope you and your family have a swell day. I'm starting a new job today, and I'm still working at a pew-pew shop for the weekends. Things are good, and your way of self-improvement helps. Excellent news. Congratulations. Working at a pew-pew shop sounds fun, though. I would work at a pew-pew shop. Sigilstone 17. The trans activist crowd has caused a lot of raised eyebrows over the fit they're throwing about Florida's new child protection laws. Any opposition to these freaks is now virtue. Yeah, I saw that. They decided to cancel a pride parade because people under 21 weren't allowed. Now, 21 is different from 18. It's quite clearly partially related to alcohol consumption, but they still threw a bitch fit about it and said they weren't going to have their parade at all. They announced that the other day. Next news story. New York Post reporting, New York Governor Kathy Hochul test marketing a ban on all tobacco sales. This is for the state of New York, of course. Now, state of New York. How many other states border you? Well, not only the Canadian border. How many other states border you? There's Vermont, there's Massachusetts, there's Connecticut, a little bit of New Jersey, actually, Pennsylvania, and a sliver of Ohio, if I recall correctly, That's going to work really, really well. See, the problem is that if you try to ban all cigarette sales, Happy Joe from Vermont and Lil Tim from Ohio are just going to become smugglers. And they'll do a markup. And by the way, the black market will function as a free market. The markups will compete with one another regionally, according to how far their reach is, of course, and how much product they're moving. And the cost of tobacco will be higher than it would otherwise be in New York, but it'll start out much higher, but then it'll fall down because of competition within the black market, which totally won't be attended to a bunch of gang crime or anything like that, because prohibition totally fucking goddamn works, especially when you have a half a dozen other states that share a border with you. See, this is why Illinois has such low gun crime. They never complain about Indiana and other adjacent states having different laws from themselves. This is DOA. The idea that they're going to successfully, they might be successful at actually passing a law to ban tobacco. That's entirely possible. See, the problem is it won't work. Tobacco will still be available. I would point out you can literally grow and cure and smoke your own tobacco, and this law wouldn't even affect that. It's just saying you can't buy it in a store. So stores aren't allowed to sell cigars, cigarettes, etc. Will it affect vape products? The government at the federal level has been going after them too, because they want people to smoke cigarettes. I'm surprised that the Biden admin hasn't tried to quash this. Well, no, you got to let people smoke all American. It's an herbal supplement, basically. It's all natural. It's grown in nature. The vaping products are the real problem. They're basically just chemical water. That seems to be basically their ethos, by the way. Yeah, another DOA concept, more drug warriorism. Hey, we'll legalize weed. You can smoke that wherever you want as long as you're 18, and we'll have dispensaries. You can grow a couple plants, and Vermonters will sell it to you if you can't grow them in your county, because of course they can in Vermont. That's fine. But don't you dare use the tobacco. Now, I don't want to seem like a simp for big tobacco or anything like that. You should not smoke. You should not smoke cigars, cigarettes, or anything like that. You shouldn't chaw. Don't use the snus or whatever the fuck that shit is. It'll discolor your teeth and it'll make you retarded. But it should be legal, because educational campaigns have already massively reduced the use of tobacco products, telling people, hey, look, this isn't actually cool. Hey, look, you want to be cool? Here's your lungs on tobacco. Here's your spleen, and here's what your skin will look like and shit like that. That works. You tell kids, look, you're going to get ugly and retarded if you smoke this product. if you shoot the heroin, if you booze all day. That actually works. What doesn't work is attempting to prohibit people from making the choice to use it if they want to. It's never worked in history. It won't work now, especially in a system where you've got so many state borders that you have to contend to. What are you going to do? Double the state police budget just to check everyone that goes into the state of New York, ask for their papers, and check their car for tobacco? You're going to train drug dogs to sniff out cigarettes now? I don't think that that's going to work too well. Stephen 13. Sticks, you are so blunt and funny when you state your opinions. I love it, just like me. Yeah, I tend to be a bit blunt. I'm an old-style New Englander from the Connecticut River Valley. Aussie's robots, there's been an obfuscation of transphobes with people that attack trans prostitutes or casual hookups with trans that didn't reveal their true gender. Yeah, isn't it rape if you misrepresent your gender, by the way? I would think that that should be labeled rape. Casey Bingri, I started a beekeeping and gardening channel, Sticks, hoping for a shout-out. Can you clank a clanker out? Okay, if you want to look into beekeeping and some extra gardening stuff there, Casey Bengry has a shout out there. Can't wait to get back into gardening myself. Mopey Hornet, hey Sticks, what's your opinion on advances that AI will become more self-aware and how that pertains to future spirituality and religious movements? There could be a church of AI at some point in the future. Not anytime soon, though. Donna K, what's the story on DeSantis making bloggers register and find them if they say something against him? My liberal coworker keeps spewing this stuff. That is fake news, quite literally. What that has to do with is people that are getting direct compensation for covering political issues, and they're getting it from a PAC or they're getting it from a candidate themselves. This would also impact bloggers that are putting out material and getting paid by the Republicans to do so. If one of DeSantis' fans pays a blogger to put out a story that is positive about him, he has 5 talking points, elaborate on them. Here's DeSantis, here's how healthy he is, DeSantis, how manly he is. Oh, he's such a mess, he's like Gaston. Here's DeSantis and his major economic accomplishments. Right now, you don't have to report the fact that you are getting money for that. There's no campaign finance sort of regulations that cover you. It does in any other field, but not online, not for the purposes of blogging. All this is an extension of existing law, and it affects Republicans, Democrats, and everyone else under the sun exactly evenly. So tell your friend that. Show them this particular timestamp clip of what I'm saying here. Read the law itself. It says it in black and white. Most people, though, they don't have the time to read the whole thing themselves. I don't even support DeSantis 24, but he is not fundamentally wrong to pass such a bill. It's just an extension of existing law. Let's see. Sigil Stone, banning drugs is a great way to get people to stop doing them, right? And how will this be enforced on the Indian reservations? Good point. Where people go for cheap smokes anyway. Yeah, you can't stop them from selling cigarettes. They're allowed to do whatever they want. They can use drugs, they can sell drugs, and there's child marriages and shit like that on reservations. Nobody can do a goddamn thing about it. Hell, they police themselves. They have their own police forces that are not really legal, but they're treated as legal for some reason by the justice system. Yeah, what are you going to do about them, Hochul? You got several major Indian reservations in northern New York. Next news story. A nation rocked by mass shootings. Yeah, there are so many of them. Historically unprecedented. Goes on an extended gun buying run. And you will never guess, women and black people are the main buyers now, disproportionate at least to their population totals, of firearms for the first time. Now, I seem to recall for years there, one of the biggest bitches against people who liked guns, like myself, I'm a Second Amendment purist, was that if black people start buying guns, you'll shut up real quick and support regulation. Well, no, I keep seeing that more black people are buying guns. I think it's fucking great. Absolutely. Maybe they'll become Second Amendment. Once they go plinking a couple times, they'll realize how fun it is. They'll become Second Amendment purists as well. And then my right to own a gun is absolutely guaranteed. I can have a whole fucking arsenal and there's no problem. So what's the issue here? I don't see a problem. One of the biggest arguments actually for private gun ownership, especially of handguns, is the 5'0" little lady with an abusive 6'6" ex-boyfriend fucking linebacker now actually stands a chance if he corners her in an alleyway after she decides to date somebody else. Yeah, we should protect everyone. with guns. We do this in courts. We do it with government buildings. We should do it with every private dwelling, every vehicle, and every person. As an individual, everyone should be armed whenever possible. When I'm back in the US, I will be armed at all times. I will not put the gun down. I'll take my gun in to go take a shit because I can. And if somebody has a problem with that, it's like, fucking go pound sand, go touch grass, go do something that's positive, like well, I can't say that on a YouTube live stream. Go play Sudoku for those of in Minecraft, for those of you who understand my reference. Why don't you go fuck yourself? Stop being a busybody. Mind your own business. Go do something productive. Shoo. Ty Sloan, thoughts on DeSantis over in Japan? It appears to be part of a book tour mainly, but he is meeting, of course, with dignitaries there. He is likely to run, but this is not, Japanese people can't vote for him, so I think this is more related to commerce than anything. QGG639. A study has shown that pipe smokers live longer than the baseline non-smoker. Thinking of getting a pipe and some cherry blend tobacco. I don't know if that's a great idea myself, but you do you. Aussie's Robots, you'd think the depopulation cult would love guns. Yeah, if guns are killing so many people, then why aren't the globaloids trying to drop crates of free guns and ammo on every community in the world? Supposedly everyone will kill each other if that happens. Hashtag justice for joggers. Styx is ready to be put into a self-defense situation. I hope I never have to be in anyone. I'll be carrying my Glock 17 effectively 24/7 when I'm back in the United States. By the way, great gun. Make punk rock great again music. The last people the American government took arms from were the Native Americans. Yeah, actually, no. They took guns away from the Japanese and Italian Americans when they put them in concentration camps in the 1940s. Yeah, they were, do you think that they allowed them to bring their hunting rifle to the internment camp? I don't think FDR likey. He had a problem with these people. He had a visceral, by the way, racial problem with people of Asian ancestry and basically would make the stereotypical jokes about them and shit like that. Not so much people of Italian and German heritage, but he put some of them in the camps too. Ty Sloan, are you a fan of Resident Evil 4? Game, movie? I don't know. I haven't paid attention to it. I did like the first Resident Evil movie. Thought that was pretty cool. There's a video game based on that back in the day. That was, 20 years ago or some shit like that? That was back when I was a youth. Next news story. A massive cavern beneath a West Antarctic glacier is teeming with life. Yes, indeed. We have Antarctica news here, which is something that I find personally interesting. And not even just talking about like Nazis in Antarctica and stuff like that, although apparently you probably could have gotten enough biomass to sustain a population of people miles and miles beneath the ice. Apparently that's possible. Up in Antarctica, they've been studying some of the subglacial lakes that are there. And every time they study one, they find that it's full of life. They find that it's flooded with microbes, sometimes at high concentrations. Those microbes support other life, fish, and so crustaceans. They find that despite the fact that there's no sunlight that penetrates there, it's full of energy. Now, this could be partially geothermal and is in many cases chemotrophs, things of that nature. What we're finding is that deep, deep beneath the ice, Antarctica is actually teeming with life. We're talking a significant amount of it. My biggest worry about this is when you drill into an ecosystem that may have been semi-locked off from the outside world for 100,000 plus years, don't you think that if you introduce bacteria that have evolved further than that other group from the outside world into that ecosystem, that could imbalance things and literally destroy every life form that happens to be there or, severely endanger them? I would be worried about that. Now, in most of the cases, when they're drilling into the ice shelves, there is an oceanic connection between where they're drilling and the wider ocean. And so these life forms have simply migrated their way under there. They are co-evolving with the other life forms in the general region. But that's not always the case. Some of these lakes are effectively locked off, and they only happen to be fairly temperate because of geothermal activity. There are hundreds of them in Antarctica. I would be surprised, by the way, because it is canonical that attempts were made. If at some point while drilling and exploring around in some of these areas that at least the ones that are connected to the ocean, they have basically river activity, I would be surprised if they didn't find remains from the Third Reich. And from other governments too. They would probably find Soviet remains at some point, possibly American remains from some of the earlier expeditions that didn't quite pan out. There are plenty of documentaries about those, by the way, on YouTube, some of which are really great. The continent, in my opinion, which is considered to be effectively dead, is actually teeming with life, number one. Under the ice is temperate. It wouldn't be survivable for humans, of course. We wouldn't be able to make do of it. But we could extract resources. And I have a feeling that, think about, here's the greatest thing. Do some exploratory drilling throughout Antarctica and see if you find oil. Because there really, at this point, shouldn't be any oil remnant there if oil really is created through abiotic processes. I would think that it would have been compressed and driven down long ago by glaciers. If you find oil near the surface, though, maybe my idea about chemotrophic life forms is true. Plexiglass dome, hello, says Coke Machine. Well, it's not really a plexiglass dome that we're dealing with here. We're dealing with, at the very least, hundreds of yards and sometimes miles of solid ice. It's not really a plexiglass dome. There's no sunlight that penetrates until you bore into it. I don't know if that's exactly your point, but if it is, yeah. It's interesting to think that a mile below the ice sheets in Antarctica, there are a shit ton of fish. It must suck to live down there. Imagine the evolution that has to take place for you to survive in those temperatures. It would suck. You never get to see the sun, and you're a fish, so you kind of suck anyway. Let's see. Casey Bengry, thanks, Sticks. As soon as I know you are back in the States, I will send you a jar of raw Michigan honey. You have more than doubled my subs in 2 seconds. Keep it going, everyone. Maybe I can get something more than just a jar of honey, too. I'll spread that on some toast. I will insist upon toast, my friend. The Copper Owl got kicked off Twitter when an artist started comms. And Agurnath1 sent $2. No comment, thank you. Steak Knife. Fred Luchter said chambers weren't built to kill. Can't get into that on a YouTube live stream. BW at the Mountains of Madness. By the way, an excellent goddamn audiobook. Look it up. H.P. Lovecraft's Mountains of Madness. Sigil Stone following suit here. Life under Antarctica? Well, yeah, everyone that's read H.P. Lovecraft knows there's all kinds of crazy shit under the ice there. Imagine if there's like a 50,000 foot wide octopus in the middle of Antarctica. It just can't die somehow genetically, and it's just been twirling around in a bunch of fish and microbes for the last 10,000 years. You never know. Stranger things have been found. Look at the coelacanth, for example. Next news story. President Biden calls civil war in Sudan unconscionable as U.S. embassy personnel evacuate. Biden thanked the U.S. troops who carried out the mission to extract American staffers in Sudan. Yeah, the situation in Sudan is getting worse. The coup is ongoing. Both sides are wrong. Both sides are butcherous and filled with terroristic thugs, and it doesn't really matter who wins, which is why the U.S. State Department is openly attempting to coerce them into forming a civilian government. What's the problem here? What kind of stability do you actually gain when you form a civilian coalition government in a nation that's been rocked by this kind of unrest, when you still have two generals trying to kill each other and assert dominance? You end up with the civilian government needing to be propped up by a third party. Oh, who's going to pay for that? Who's going to arm them? Who's going to train troops? Who's going to sit on the ground and make sure that the airport stays open? Can you say U.S. troops or coalition forces of some sort that aren't from Sudan? The best case scenario, if they go through with this fucking plan, if they work in coercing the formation of such a government, is that the goddamn Egyptians roll in and they turn it into a puppet state in order to fend off Ethiopia with their damming project and things like that. The best case scenario is occupation by the Egyptians at this point for the Sudanese people. Assuming one of these generals doesn't successfully slaughter the other, subjugate their forces, and simply become a dictator, Gaddafi style. Hell, I guess that's the best outcome. A fucking dictator. That's how sad the situation really is. But right now, fighting has gone on for days and days. Virtually everyone able to take their people out of Sudan has done so. By the way, the Canadians, literally the other day, there was a news story, and it shows a little bit about Canada. The Canadian government told its people, its staff in Sudan, well, we're sorry, at this point, it's not possible to evacuate you. I guess they're going to have to get a U.S. plane to go in. The U.S. forces will have to evacuate the fucking Canadians. Should just leave them there, by the way. Anyway, you've got the RSF or RSV, I can't remember which one, versus the de facto sitting government of Sudan that calls the shots more politically and diplomatically. And they both have very large numbers of troops. The de facto government has some air support, but they've got like one fucking airfield, so it's not a lot. And it probably will go on for some time. They're basically preparing people for a protracted war in Sudan. They're bombing their own capital. The only center of commerce in the entirety of Sudan with a significant number of paved roads right now is being bombed to smithereens, and people are shooting each other, and hundreds of thousands of people are currently fleeing. Virtually all foreign influence has already fled the country. Well, there you go. What do you fucking have left? You have oil in Sudan. You don't have a lot of other resources. You have some agriculture going on, but you're going to end up at some point, they'll probably start bombing farm fields or something, defoliating them or something. So President Biden says, I thank the U.S. troops. Why don't they send him to Sudan? Send him on a diplomatic mission and then refuse to bring him back and just leave him in Sudan as a pawn or something like that. Coke Machine sent $2. No comment, thank you. SP Elite idea, spicy weekend, short weekend streams. I would love to stream on the weekends, but by God, I can't do that every single day. I work about 10 hours a day on weekdays anyway, and almost as much already on weekends, because I also do editing. I do chores around the house. I've got a child that I take care of. I do a lot of cooking. I'm stretched a little bit thin these days. So it's like I keep getting offers for appearances, debates, discussions, etc. I have to keep bouncing them. I don't have the time in the day, schedule-wise. Hunter Wadley, I heard beekeepers live longer than anyone else from any other profession on average. Interesting in my opinion. Must be the pollen. The Copper Owl, I can paint you a Nerf gun if you want and mail it. Yeah, you can actually get serviceable weapons in the Netherlands just by having ID. They're just pneumatic. They're air-powered or CO2-powered. And they are, in some cases, powerful enough to kill a deer. I haven't gotten one because of the inordinate price regarding them. And, I can't see what the fuck I'd be doing with it. Where am I going to use it other than for home defense? And if I'm going to do that, I'd rather just get something that's smaller, like a standard fucking literally BB gun, and just spray the person down, or just, carve them up like a Christmas turkey. Ozzy's robot, Sudanese Cleopatra will save the day. Yes, Nubia, quite literally. None of your business. Sorry, from Canada. Blame Canada. Frederick John, good morning, Sticks. If you'd be willing to shout out Tragic Age, 80s style post-punk and goth music, you and your audience may enjoy it. Probably so. Consider yourself shouted out. And, let's see. One more news story. Former Anheuser-Busch exec on Bud Light's marketing VP taking leave of absence. Who will it be accountable to? Have a cold Bud Light, not a woke one, Frericks urged. Yeah, we're going to talk briefly about the Bud Light bullshit that's still going on. I'll reiterate, I cannot boycott Bud Light because I don't drink beer. Least ways, if I was drinking beer, it wouldn't be Bud Light anyway, because goddamn, how many fucking Bud Lights do you have to drink in order to get tipsy? Even an 18-year-old who shouldn't be drinking at all probably would need to pound down 3 or 4 of them in order to get a little bit of a head swimmy going on. So basically, Bud Light is good for one thing. If water runs out when there's a natural disaster and everything's fucked up, you could use it as a replacement for water. You can also make a small beer, by the way. You can make pot beer with it. You simply mix it 50-50 with actual water. The alcohol content at that point is low enough that it's barely alcoholic. But if you let it sit for a little while, it will tend to kill microbes. So, the water system's been fucked. It's better than nothing. It's better to boil your water, but in the absence of having the energy to boil the water, you may find yourself making pot beer. Well, use Bud Light. You know, it's already weak enough as is. You definitely have to mix it 50-50. Otherwise, there's not a whole lot much left. And you can use it in cooking. You know, in some recipes you can use beer, although most people use stouts and shit like that. Here's my idea. Bud Light's marketing VP, Alyssa Heinerscheid, has reportedly taken a leave of absence following worldwide calls to boycott the formerly beloved beer. Well, it's still got plenty of fans, so that's a little bit of loaded language. She is being replaced by Budweiser Global Marketing Vice President Todd Allen, Ad Age reports. The company has also hired 2 consultants with experience in DC's conservative circles to advise the brand moving forward. Well, here'd be my advice. You actually made a pretty good trade-off. Yeah, you lost a shit ton of, possibly at this point, tens of millions of units because businesses don't want to stock your beer. People are not buying it as much. However, you got a massive amount of free advertising. For every person that you turned off from your beer, another person who used to be a Pabst Blue Ribbon drinker is probably now drinking it. Well, it's the ultimate switcheroo. You've just changed your clientele demographics. In the end, I expect that their marketing VP will come back on board. Maybe not in that role, but in a role. Will be not fired, for example. It's a leave of absence. It's not a firing. It's not a furlough or anything like that. Basically, they're telling Alyssa Heinerscheid, go away for a few weeks, maybe a few months. We'll keep paying you, hush, hush, and let this blow over, and then sales will normalize, and you can come back into some role or another. That's what they're doing. That's because they realize that boycotts tend to have problems in the internet era. Everyone talks about boycotting the product, but they're talking about the product still now, aren't they? In the end, it's helpful if you believe politically that they shouldn't have had Dylan Mulvaney, of all people, the cringe lord of TikTok himself, fronting Bud Light. At the end of the day, though, a lot of people have brand loyalty. They're not going to stop drinking it. A lot of people don't drink beer like myself and can't boycott it at all. They're going to bring some people on board who wouldn't have bought it before. But now that the company is woke, like all of the other companies, they're on a more even keel. What Budweiser didn't want is to be the face of redneck beer, MAGA hat beer, basically. They want to have a diverse demographic that drinks their poison. This is why ESG, by the way, is a problem. This company literally sells people something that can kill them. It sells people something that can cause domestic violence, or exacerbate it at least, that can shut down your liver, that can cause diabetes and all of these other things. And yet they're getting praised for being woke. And there are actually people out there fucking stupid enough to praise them for being so. They're a for-profit entity. They sell literal poison all around the world, by the way. So why should they be applauded? But that doesn't mean that the boycott in the end works, number one, which I suspect it won't. It'll reduce their sales for a while. They may close down a few operations, but it's not going to, it's not going to bankrupt Budweiser or anything like that. They're too big at that point to happen. And number two, I can't join in anyway because I don't drink beer. I have better taste than them. And it's like beer is used in some foods other than maybe beer battered fries. I can't think of anything I like beer. And like even wine for cooking, a lot of people use wine. I prefer to use red wine vinegar or something like that if I want that kick, that particular style of flavor, unless it's Parthian chicken. The only wine I ever really drank was white anyway. And you can do that with Parthian chicken apparently, but the red wine stains its flesh and makes it purple. That's kind of cool. Okay, I'll give that one a pass. And it did taste good, ultimately, with the asafoetida, seared into it. But cooking with beer, it's like, I don't know. I added wine to a stew once, and I like beef stew. I thought it made it taste not as good. I don't know exactly what profile of flavor people are going for with that sort of shit. So, yeah, I don't care anything about Dylan Mulvaney. I can't boycott Bud Light because I don't drink beer. If you want to do so, you can. In the end, though, again, I would just caution people that in the end, the marketing VP will probably come back aboard. Their campaign will be forgotten long before the beer will, and people will still drink their poison. By the way, please send no more super chats because we are almost 50 minutes in. And of course, although that Liz is cooking tonight, she's making, it's called Bladderdeeg. which is the Dutch term. It's like a sort of phyllo dough sort of thing wrapped around various vegetables and seasonings. She makes it really, really fucking good. And tomorrow I'm making chili and possibly cornbread. So it's going to be a good week altogether. But I do have other things to do. South Texas Gal, so glad you're with. Sticks, never give up. Thank you very much. SP Elite, the absolute state of Canada, lol, abandoned, sad. Mojo Hansen, the deep state will use false flags to stop Trump, assassination being the last resort. They may actually be crazy enough to try that, by the way. There's not a 0% possibility that they'll take a shot. David Walk, send Harris to Sudan, lol. Yeah, then the civil war would actually end. She would be successful. They would unite in hating her, and they would both demand that she be jailed, and they'd parade her through the streets. Michael Greco, don't know how much you know about it or have looked into it. What are your thoughts on the likelihood of the Ark of the Covenant being in the city of Aksum and Ethiopia? The story of how Jews ended up there is interesting. 0% chance that they have the Ark of the Covenant. By now, it would have been looted or forgotten or something of that nature. And the replica that they drag out for the tourists is clearly not actually the Ark of the Covenant. That being said, it is an interesting history. I have read about it some. Steak Knife, new subscribers. Sticks used to drop bangers. Still do. I'm going to be doing a little bit more non-political content, actually, over the coming months. I've decided to pivot slightly with regards to the content. I'm thinking maybe I can get around YouTube's algorithm if I make at least one video a day that has nothing to do with politics or news topics that have to do with sociopolitics, like it doesn't mention Trump, it doesn't mention polls. Maybe I can fuck with their algorithm a little bit. I noticed that some people that are still growing more quickly than I am tend to do that. Like there's an eclectic plethora of topics. I think I may have found a new niche. Sigil Stone. I don't know how much various brands, especially for women's products, keep having Mulvaney on for marketing. He talks about women like he's posting on B. Yeah, it's because it's an easy way to fulfill their ESG needs to get more investment. That's literally the reason why. The Gunslinger. Would a Trump assassination actually spark war? I don't know that it would spark a war, but there would be massive unrest if such a thing were to happen. More, it would be another pulling back of the curtain and exposing the bare wall behind it by the Uniparty and Deep State. By the way, I have been live on Rumble. By the way, if you're watching on Twitter, not Rumble, Twitter, if you're watching there, I haven't gotten to your comments because I can't have an extra tab open with only one screen. But I am live on Twitter as well these days. Filthy Casual Gamer. If you're going to add wine to soup, tastes better if you add wine to protein and let alcohol cook off prior to adding the broth. Yeah, but even if you do that, it's an off-putting flavor. I'd rather just use vinegar if I'm going to do that sort of thing. My chicken and dumplings, by the way, the other day came out great. Oh, that reminds me. I actually took a picture of that, of a bowl of the chicken and dumplings I made, but I forgot to post it. To those of you watching on Twitter especially, I will post that a little bit later if I can remember to do so. Anyway, I'm going to go offline now. I thank you to all the people that tuned in. Over about 5,000 people as usual. So yeah, I've got things that I must do, including going out to the store again to get requisitions, to get some victuals and drink. That's about all. Peace out.